All right, we're here to talk about fundraising. Is everyone in the right room? Yes, I'm so excited about this. Ironically, usually you give talks about the things you love to do. I will say I don't love to do this. But what I do think is really important is understanding how all of this works, because it makes it a lot easier, because it's a very, very, very difficult thing to do and to stay calm through. So first, who here has fundraised before? Anybody? A couple of you. Who here is interested in just learning about it generally? Okay. Who here would like to one day maybe start your own business? Okay, so a good amount of you. Okay, great. So we're going to kind of go through a good amount of concepts here that you can use even now or in the future that will hopefully make things a little easier. Like, oh, hold on. Apparently I need to be louder. Am I loud enough now? Okay, I can scream. I can do that. Okay. All right, so first things first, who am I and why am I talking to you about this? So I am a founder, first-time founder. Started a company about 18 months ago. That company is called Edera. At 2041 is our booth, so come say hello to our team. Before that, I've actually had a very interesting non-traditional path into tech. I have been in tech since 2019. I've been in cloud native since 2021. And before that, I was in financial services and spent the majority of my career in actually people and talent. So I have a very different path. I love the concept of that people are generally good. I believe in that. Even when people aren't good, I can see the good in them, and I think it's important to keep that in mind as you go through fundraising in particular. I had the most of my career at KPMG, which is a financial services firm. It's one of the big four accounting firms. So I spent a lot of time learning how to help people build their careers and a lot of time in the finance industry before tech. This is my journal on the bottom here. It says manifest that S word. I'm big into manifestation, not as a I'm gonna sit and wish things on a star to come true. It is I like to put my intention out into the world and my actions follow that intention. So I actually physically write this in my manifestation journal, one of which was, can I please, for the love of God, raise money for the startup? It did happen, so I like to believe that this actual journal has brought me here. So, next up is a little reality check. Who here has seen the show or knows of the show Silicon Valley on HBO? I have some news for you. It turns out it's a documentary. I'm not sure if you knew that, but it is painfully true. So when you start to go out and raise your round, I sometimes suggest people watch it because it's therapeutic, and sometimes it makes you want to cry bad tears. I found it to be really funny and kind of gave me this uplifting experience through what is very challenging in fundraising, but we'll have some references here for those who understand and know the show. Some things I want to set the rules on here are a little bit of things that can psych you out. So social media is sometimes the worst. And particularly when you're trying to go and put yourself out there. And when you're fundraising, that's really what you're doing. You're taking something near and dear to your heart, and you're asking people, do you care? And do you care enough about this to want to actually fund it? The keyboard warriors are people to kind of be aware of. So these are the people who have a lot of that knowledge sharing. This is some things that you should keep in mind when you're raising money. Be very wary of those people. It's a lot of clickbait, and a lot of times it can make you feel upset and feel like you're doing something wrong, and that's not necessarily a great place to look, but because it's everywhere, sometimes it can get very distracting. So beware of the keyboard warriors. The hype cycle is very distracting too. Most of the things that get picked up by TechCrunch or other publications are the outliers. They're the massive rounds. They're the ones that come with stories like, no pitch deck, I raised because I just wanted to, and oh my gosh, it just happened. Those are outliers. And so if you start with these expectations in mind, fundraising will be a lot harder psychologically, and fundraising is a psychological game, right? Does that make sense? Generally, throw in the thumbs, love that, thank you. So a little bit of fundraising slang that I'm going to refer to here that may mean some things to you in regular English, but mean different things in the VC landscape. So I think it's important to have a little bit of clarity there. Conviction is a word you'll hear all of the time, and sometimes now when I hear it, I shiver. Not good shivers. But conviction means an investor feels like they want to back it. They have done enough research and enough behind what your company is doing that they want to actually fund it. So when they say they have conviction, that's a good thing. They'll often say early, we haven't gotten to conviction yet. That means they don't have enough data points to fund you. So that word is really important. Traction means you have true movement. Do you have revenue? Do you have customers? And so when they say there's a lack of traction or you need to see more traction, what they mean are metrics, so things that you can measure. Leaning in means that they are interested in you. They don't have conviction, but they're leaning in, not physically, but through wanting to get references, wanting to find out more about your ecosystem. But leaning in is a good thing to hear. When they say they're not going to lean in, that means they're not interested. Warm intros is I know somebody who knows somebody, and they can get you an intro to a VC. These are very important. I'll talk about that later. It's very important in this ecosystem. But when people say I'm looking for warm intros, that means somebody who knows a VC that you want to get in touch with. Back channeling means that somebody is going to ask people about you without your knowledge. VCs, I have found, love a good back channel. So that means prior employers, people that you have met in a prior life, they will find them on LinkedIn, they will find their cell phone number, and they will ask to talk to them without you knowing. Very, very common, and I'll talk about what this means in a minute. A term sheet is what you get when they have an intent to give money. It is not a formal legal document. I think the only thing in there that's formal is that you can't go find another VC in the 30 days that it's active, but what it does is it shows the pre and post money valuation, meaning like how much I'm going to value your company before you take on the funding round that you want and after. So a pre-money valuation would be we're going to value your company at 10 million. If you're raising 5 million, the post-money would be 15. So those are important things to understand. People will also say tier 1 VC. That's usually the largest tier 1 or the largest multi-stage funds. So you'll hear names like Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia, Lightspeed are just some of those. And then you'll hear, we all know FOMO. It's like fear of missing out. But creating FOMO in the VC ecosystem is so important. I'll talk a bit about that before, but like FOMO in the ecosystem is like people they don't want to miss out. If they think somebody's going to be raising, you want to create this FOMO so that a bunch of people want to give you money. Does that sound good? We're going to set the stage there because I'm going to be referencing those. Amazing. All right, so raising money is a very big step, and it requires a lot of things that you should understand commitment-wise. There's the difference between, you'll hear bootstrapping, and that typically means that you're going to start a company with your own money, try to get customers, and generate a start on your own. When you're raising money, you have to really think about, am I ready to make this company really big and long-lasting, and I want to make something unicorn status, meaning like $1 billion valuation. I'm ready to grow this thing. You should be asking yourself a couple things before you go and try to take VC money. The first is this something that's like I can actually commercialize? There are a lot of amazing ideas out there in tech, but can I actually picture and explain why someone would want to transact and give me money for the thing that I'm building? In the absence of that, really cool, innovative tech kind of falls short because you can't actually sell it. So VCs are not going to back companies typically unless you can prove that there's a very substantial revenue stream attached to that. The second is your team is so important. Finding the right founders is so important. So is the team balanced? Do we have tech folks? Do we have folks who can story tell, who can tell a really good narrative about the problem we're trying to solve and get people to really buy in and lean into the problem space? Do you respect your co-founders? Do you like them? Are you able to, I look at mine right here, she's cool. But can you argue and come out okay? Do you respect each other's position? Do you know what value each other brings and respect that those decisions will be with those who have that skill set the most? And if you do not have a strong relationship with a founder or your co-founder, just do not do it. There are more problems with startups falling and failing because of co-founder infighting and arguing than anything else. So this is so important. And then commitment. Are we truly committed to building this? Because when you take on VC funds, you have pressure to return investments now. So if you take on the money, you need to know that you're ready to lean in and really go for it. So am I ready to say that I'm going to take that $1 billion path? So let's talk a little bit about execution here. Well, I said earlier that there are some rumors like, oh, I raised without a term sheet. I think, without a, what's it called, pitch deck. But those are very rare. That happened a lot more in the ZIRP, the zero interest rate time, where you could kind of just say an idea out loud and people would throw millions at your face. That's not the case anymore. You really need to be thinking about, like, do I have the ability to have something that is real? So can I build a prototype about something? Like, is there something I could tangibly show that shows that my idea is not just an idea, but it's a prototype? One thing I will just back up really quickly to say is there's different fundraising categories, like pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B. Have you kind of heard those categories before? They used to mean something. I'm not really sure they mean something anymore. You'll see a pre-seed for like $1 billion, and you're like, is that real life? But that's the AI. We're going to not talk about the AI side of things today. But most people now expect, even in a pre-seed, that you have a prototype or a working prototype. Pre-seed usually means that it's ideation phase, where seed is that you have something that you can start to sell. Series A is that I'm starting to scale something and be outward, like very general. Do you have people lined up that you have talked to that have the problem you're trying to solve and would be willing to go on the record for you? And these are people that work at companies. Notably for VCs, they like brand name companies that they know and love and recognize. So most likely, if you can find enterprise level or mid-market that are really attached to your problem space, that's the best. You need a slide deck. You just do. Most VCs, if you don't know them well, will ask for a deck first before they'll even talk to you. And that should be short and sweet, succinct with your problem statement. I typically say no more than 12 slides or you start to lose people. They have this thing called DocSend. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but if you're going to send a deck, you can send a link on this thing called DocSend. Everyone knows about it in the VC ecosystem now, but essentially it hosts your deck on a site that allows you to see how long they spend on each of your slides, whether they've opened it, and you can track it per VC. Super helpful, but you'll notice when you see it that we're talking like less than 10 seconds a slide. Most people will go dink, 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 stop on like whether it's either revenue slide, stop on the team slide, and close it. So just make sure whatever the messages you want to hit are really clear and crisp in the deck itself. Warm intros. There are some VCs who will say that they only will take meetings with people that they get warm intros from. It is a reality. And you have a much higher likelihood of transacting with a VC if somebody that they know recommends the intro. It's an upsetting truth because some folks who have incredible ideas are limited by the fact that they don't know people. But you are at KubeCon today. There are a lot of incredible founders here who would be more than happy to help, myself included, which is why I'm talking about this. So make sure you're asking for those favors. We kind of have to lift each other up in this founding community. It's really hard to go at it alone. Running the round. So storytelling is so important. Recognizing most VCs, even when you find a partner who is very close to the skill set or even the domain that you are trying to pitch into, it's unlikely they're going to have the technical depth that you do. So if you are technical yourself, like you are a developer that's going out to pitch, you should be really working with folks who can level you up about 4 or 5 levels above where you are to start. Because most of the time when you're really technical, you start with the technical bits of what you're building versus the problem you're trying to solve, because they're really looking for where is the market, where am I going to get revenue, and are you well associated with that? Then they'll get to the tech. So it's a really thing that a lot of people will trip up on early, is that they went too hard on the technical aptitude part first. Skepticism is real. You will have certain VCs who are incredibly respectful and certain who might not be as respectful, whether or not they understand the concepts that you're saying or not. It is really important to hit skepticism head on. And what I learned in early pitching is that when we started pitching our product, we talked a lot about Kubernetes. And what happened was, because there was a big Kubernetes startup boom that had happened before our tech, which is secure by design, so it's different than observability, most people would hear the word Kubernetes and immediately classify you. So what I learned early on, I did it probably wrong about 10, 15 times. I said, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. What you're thinking is, this Kubernetes observability market is crowded, and you know what, you're right. And then you start to position where you are so that you can kind of hit it before anybody will even tell you that. But I had to learn that the hard way. I stumbled a few times and got a little frustrated, and then I was like, oh, I need to take the words out of their mouth before they say it to me. And it was really, really effective when we did that. There are some cases, and this happens particularly with women, there's actually data to support this, that most times you're gonna get the downside question before you get the upside question. So for any women founders in here, you might be asked, what are you gonna do when something goes wrong, instead of what would you do when something goes right? I had a female founder give me an amazing advice early on, and she told me, when you get the downside question, answer with the up. And so you can start to control that, because otherwise you inadvertently get on your back heel no matter what, because you're trying to prove why you should be trusted versus knowing that you already are capable. So something to really be noted is listen to the questions. It's kind of like I think a politician thing that people do, answer the question that you want to answer. But I would highly recommend doing that if it happens. If you're going to run around, decide you're going to run around. The worst thing you can do for yourself is that you extend it for a period of time because you're not sure what you're doing, and it peters out. When I talk about creating FOMO, people have to believe they're gonna miss the window, and they're gonna wanna jump because they're gonna, again, you only have a 4-week, you have all these meetings scheduled up. So don't kind of drip them in, because what happens is sometimes if people don't bite on the front end, there's gonna be a probably unfair misconception that it's not a good deal to back. So you have to be very organized. So make sure you get all your warm intros on a list before you have them do it, and have them all blitz at the same time. Recognize you're gonna have a lot of meetings at the same time. Just clear your calendar. It's much better that way, because if they do not feel like they're going to miss out, they will not move fast. You might find the exception to that, but that's typically the truth. So track the pipeline, make sure you're looking at the status so you don't miss things. You do need to follow up with investors. That's not a bad thing to do, particularly if you have a lot of meetings going on. Things do get lost. But typically, if people are interested, they're gonna move fast with you. And if they're not, they might not tell you, but they're probably just gonna kind of disappear. Sound good? We're still with me here? Love it. So real things I heard before I started fundraising. I talked to a founder that said, well, this is what you gotta do. All you gotta do is call a VC, tell them how much you wanna be valued, and then just like back into the percent ownership. And I was like, baller, I'll just do that. That's not real, not for most people. I think if you are a second-time founder, you might have the advantage of doing that because you've proven yourself, you've exited. But I'm seeing a second-time founder go, I don't know. That was advice I got, and I had a moment of like, what is happening to me? You also might talk to people who don't understand the space you're in, and you're talking about how you're excited about something. And some people are like, no, I've never heard that problem before. That's not a thing. Be really careful about who you share your excitement with, because it gets very emotionally sensitive during a time when you have a lot of rejection, which I'll talk about in a second. So make sure you have the people around you that will be honest with you about whether or not you're going in the right direction, but are accurately informed. Right? You don't want just yes people around you, but you want people who understand what you're trying to do and will give you good advice. So rejection ops, this is so real. So one of the things about fundraising that I think was one of the most, I've become a much stronger person from, is learning what it feels like to be rejected over and over again, and finding a way to not let that just pop you like a balloon, you know? Because there's a lot of reasons why you need to tweak things, but there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't. So some of the things I just wanted to highlight here is, you really need to categorize the no's you're getting and try to do the best you can to understand why something's happening. Many VCs will send you feedback, many VCs won't. Some of the feedback is true, some of the feedback is not true, and it's a canned response, so it can be really hard to understand what exactly went wrong. But be quick to adjust your narrative as long as it feels aligned with something that your gut's kind of telling me, oh, okay, I can see this, I've gotten it a couple times, let me move my narrative. But if you take every rejection as a, holy S, it's not working, and you flip the script, you will look like a manic person who doesn't know what they're talking about. So you want to figure out how to categorize those no's in a way that's helpful for you. But your ego is going to have a very bruised time. So sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's not. It depends on exactly how things are going, but you want to make sure that you're taking a moment to truly just believe in yourself enough to keep going, because it can be really hard. The ghosting is true too. There are a lot of people who will say, oh my gosh, I'm so stoked about what you're building. We'll send a follow-up. They don't, you follow up, and then nothing ever happens again. It's not you, it's just part of the game. So, just be mindful that the ghosting is part of it too. But this is one of the biggest points, is just believing in yourself enough to not let these rejections make you feel less of yourself, because this is a really hard thing to do and why most people don't try to do it. Navigating unconscious bias and things that you can and can't control. Back-channeling, super common. It's known to also be incredibly biased. So you may have had a situation at work that was, I don't know, harassment or something like that. They can very much back-channel you. You wouldn't know. People are going to tell a story that you cannot actually rebut. And it's just the way it is. And sometimes you'll lose something because of that. Sometimes you won't. But I have found that when you are working with people who believe in what you're doing and respect you as a person, they will give you enough respect to ask you whether or not what they heard was true. But it is a part of it. You cannot stop the back channeling. You just have to accept that it is real. It will be harder for non-traditional founders. The stats are true, and that less than 2% of funding goes to women. So statistically, it's very hard. Please still do it, women founders in the room. It's hard, but we need more, so just go and try it and call me, and we will commiserate and cry together. But unless people keep trying, we're not going to have enough. Directing your energy towards things you can and can't control is really important. Fundraising isn't fair. It doesn't matter who you are. It's just not. And it's hard and it's a grind. But if you focus on all the things that aren't fair and why it sucks all of the time, then your energy is going towards something that you can't be productive about. So you have to find a way to just be like, find your safe person, scream. Sometimes it's me in a car with loud music, if that's what I need. And then you just get back at it, right? Like, use your energy to be productive and get something done. Again, believing in yourself is really important, and knowing, again, check the ego to make sure you're making the right adjustments, but know that you are good enough to make this happen, and you're good enough to try this out, and you should try. The other things that you should have lined up are your own references, so people who have worked with you before, preferably across different thresholds, peers, direct reports, people who have managed you, because they will ask, and sometimes if there are some back-channeling issues, you can have people help clarify that for you. And then the close. Some things just to make sure before you accept. So say you get a term sheet, hooray, so exciting. Make sure that you have enough personal runway that you don't end up taking the wrong term sheet. It's really hard to start your own company without any money and not have some of those things in your mind being like, holy moly, I need a paycheck. But if you are not well positioned, you will probably take worse terms than you should, mostly because you just are trying to get some salary back. VCs are very, I would say, different. They're different in the way that they emote. They are different in their priorities. They're different in who they are as people. Take the time to know people well enough to make sure that you are ponying up with people who actually you'd want to be in during a crisis. Sometimes the name of a fund can be very shiny, but they're not the right person who's going to be with you when things are going down, because in startup world is a roller coaster. So you want to make sure that people believe in you and that you're not just trying to saddle up to something because it seems popular. Make sure you understand the composition of the board that you want, the observer rights, any protective provisions. I'll go to a next slide to make sure you have the right people to help you with that. But really, it's about trying to find those people that aren't caught up in the FOMO as much as they are initiating the FOMO. So who are your first believers? Who are the people willing to take it, just because they understand and value you as a person before everyone thinks you're cool? It's kind of like picking friends. It's like you want the people who knew you as a nerd, and then there are those people that you keep around. Get a lawyer. I think some people ask their friends to do it because it's expensive, but you cannot read those they literally write these documents to confuse you. There's double negatives, like there's terms that are hidden under rocks, and it can be really scary because usually the terms are initiated by the VC that you're with. And not to say the VCs are not kind and lovely people, but everyone's trying to get the advantage in their side, so they're always going to default to advantageous terms for the VC. But if you have a lawyer that's good, there's a lot of firms that if you're interested, I can give you some references that can do that for you. I'll just do a quick plug for Wilson Sonsini. They do a startup package where you can actually work with them and they don't have you pay until you start to get the round done. So they were really favorable with us and didn't make us pay until we were done. They were lovely to work with, so I will just say that. Something that people don't talk about a lot is the strategy on the amount of money that you take and the valuation that you take. So there's a funny scene in Silicon Valley where this guy takes this massive valuation and then the guy meets him at the bar later and he's upside down because he completely took too high of a valuation. He got owned and he's crying because he lost his company. Like that literally does happen. So you shouldn't always go for the highest valuation. Sometimes it is shiny and it's too shiny. Make sure you're aligning with people who you trust enough to be able to say that the valuation feels fair, not necessarily the highest, because you have to actually then do things to live up to that valuation. And then when you need to take on your next round or go to the next level in your company, you may actually put yourself out of the ability to raise because you took too high of a valuation to begin with. So percentage ownership is important, but not so important that you should cut out the optionality of your future. Concessions, you will make them, whether that be percent ownership or whether it be other things. Just be realistic. There's a lot of misinformation about how much percent ownership you should take and at what level and all these other terms. Trust yourself and your gut and make the right concessions to make sure you have an opportunity to play. And then make sure you have a good board set up too. You do not want people on your board that you do not like. It's very hard to move them off, so be very thoughtful when you take a seed round in particular, whether or not, if you can not have someone take a board seat, even better. But if you have to, make sure you feel good about who's going on your board. And in closing, this is an actual Post-it note that says no plan B that I put on my computer when we founded, right before I did my first VC pitch. And the whole concept of no plan B is that there's literally no way in the history of the world that we're not gonna make this happen. Like that is literally the amount of conviction that you have to survive the amount of rejection that you get. And on the other side, like my colleagues are in the front row here, like you get to build something so amazing that you can be so proud of, that you can change the world of technology around you. But for many, because we aren't, independently wealthy enough to do this without support, you need to get through this first hurdle to be able to play. So I really want to make sure that it is not, you don't get bogged down by all these wild social media posts about how easy this should be. It's a hard thing, but you can do it if you care enough and believe enough in yourself and the people around you to do it. So I kept this literally on my monitor. It's still there today. So when I get in a hard spot at work, I can remember that there's nothing that's going to make this not possible. So it is about having thick skin, grit, tenacity. So if all of those things are in you or you want to build that within yourself, you absolutely should go out and try it. We need more people innovating, and hopefully this helped orient you to being able to do it yourself. And that's it. Thanks so much. And I don't know, do we have time for questions? We do. Okay, perfect. So question. Oh, there's a mic right here. Can you run to it? Or, yeah. You're just a little too far for my poor ears, I think.
Making me get up and do some cardio, thank you. For the previous two slides, I just was curious, were those Tulsa King gifts?
Which one?
That one and one after it.
Our what?
Tulsa King?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. They're from the show Silicon Valley. Yes, which, again, for those who have not watched Silicon Valley, highly recommend. Highly recommend. And I thought I saw another hand. Was there a hand or no? Okay, just want to make sure. I think that's a wrap. I'm going to around if you want to talk, or if you want to find me at the booth 2041. If you have any questions you'd rather ask in private, sometimes this can be very personal, so I understand that. But thank you so much for spending your time with me. I really appreciate it. So thank you.